What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from Kiev, Ukraine. So I am finally back after being semi-restored to my permanent glory. So I told you guys a little bit about it on a couple of my videos, but I will go ahead and explain what happened. Exactly 2 days ago today, I was walking out of the grocery store below my apartment, which is a Silpo. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Silpo grocery stores, one of the things they do is they print out on your receipt, they print out a fortune, like a fortune cookie. So everybody's reads these. So I'm walking out of my store, as I've done hundreds of times because I live right above it, and I'm looking at my receipt, and it's in Cyrillic, so it takes me a second to translate, and I'm just looking out of my periphery. And when I got to the stairs, which are pretty much concrete or slash marble stairs, I thought the top step, it was still the top platform. It was actually a second step down. And when I stepped forward, I basically went down one further step. My head went forward. I went head over heels all the way down the stairs. And as a result, thought I broke my arm, thought I broke my leg, banged my head up. My teeth, I believe, went through my bottom lip because I have a scar on the outside and the inside of my lip pretty bad. Had cuts on my eye, cuts on the back of my head. And the worst part is I knocked out this tooth here. I broke in half horizontally. I broke the back half of it vertically. And then the tooth next to it, I took a big chip out of it as well. So this is a prosthetic tooth that I can pop out because I have to wait 4 more months for the bone to regrow so I can do an implant. This tooth here that I broke in half was root canaled and crowned, and then they bonded this other tooth. So that's why I said I've been partially restored to my former glory. So almost done with my treatment plan. I've got about 4 more months to wait before I can do an implant, and then I will be back to normal. So this little prosthetic piece that they gave me to put in here has a flat back panel on it, and I just received this 2 days ago. I'm still kind of learning to talk with it, so I might have a little bit of a lisp, so bear with me. So since my last video, there has been quite a few things that have been in the news, and so I want to talk about two of them. Everybody's screaming about Tomahawk missiles, as you've heard. Thousands or hundreds at least people talk about it online, on television, and then the new upcoming summit between the proposed summit between President Putin and President Trump in Budapest. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the Tomahawk missiles. I said from the outset, and when I go online, everybody's just screaming, repeating, screaming, send the Tomahawks now, send the Tomahawks now, send the Tomahawks now. It is no different than the same people who were screaming, send the F-16s now, when Ukraine did not have any pilots trained to fly, did not have any personnel trained to maintain them, and had no logistical supply line established. It's the same thing now, people. Ukraine does not possess a platform to launch the Tomahawk missiles from. People argue with me online. They can fire them from the F-16s. No, they can't. The F-16 is a lightweight air-to-air fighter aircraft, does not have a payload like that. These missiles are 6.2 meters, almost 20 feet long, and weigh about 33 to 3,500 pounds. We fire them from our strategic bombers, our submarines, and our Navy, our warships. So they were not meant really to be fired, definitely not by fighter aircraft. Other people tell me, we'll just send the missiles and Ukraine will figure it out. That's not how that works, people. This is not something you can just jerry-rig some kind of little control system, to interface with the warhead, with the mapping mechanisms and everything. That's not how that works. And then the first thing people do is they jump online and they, this mobile-based launch system exists, and therefore they automatically equate that and mean that's automatically coming to Ukraine. And so I wanted to talk about a couple of those specifically. So let's go ahead and switch over here. So this is the Typhon that everybody, as soon as somebody Googles, if I tell them platform doesn't exist, they Google, this is the first thing they bring up. So the Typhon system, made by Raytheon's, it's been around for a little bit, not that long, and the U.S. only has about 2 batteries of them in their entire inventory because, okay, my smartphone just picked up something. I didn't say anything to you. So the U.S. Army only has about 2 batteries of them in their entire inventory, and the other thing I try to stress to people about this is this platform has not been exported anywhere. Now, before somebody goes out and Googles real quick, yes, I know it's been exported to the Philippines and it's been exported to Japan and Australia, but those were 2 U.S. those have been exported to U.S. military installations and units there. I mean, these have not been exported to any of our allies worldwide because not enough of these systems have been produced because they are still relatively new. So the idea that the U.S. is automatically going to ship these over to Ukraine is not very likely. In addition, if you look at the construction of them, you can see it's like an LMTV or a Hemet, where they call these, and then it's a tractor trailer on the back. So right now, especially, we're going into mud season. A lot of the places that now I'm not saying these would be on the front lines at all, but a lot of places that the troops are stationed, and I don't mean necessarily in the front lines, but are kind of in austere environments. They're not paved and flat and level and all this, and so these are not the most mobile um, platforms out there. I mean, you can imagine that in a rough environment, these things probably wouldn't work too well. In addition, as I said before, they haven't been exported, so it will take people a while to train on how to use them, how to maintain them, and that's not even getting into the whole targeting process from, and this is going down a different rabbit hole, but from target selection, validation, mensuration, prosecution, and then you go into battle damage assessment to determine if you need a restrike or not. That's all that comes on the back end before they even get a hold of these things. So I don't think this Typhon launcher will be one that will be readily exported to Ukraine. However, if this other little thing just came out last week or a week and a half, and at first I saw this XMAV by Oshkosh Defense Industries. I saw this and I saw that it was unveiled at one of the defense industry like roadshow type things, or I forget what they call those exactly, in DC area. And when I first saw this, I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. But if it was unveiled at this defense industry show, that means it's just a prototype, and they're looking for contractors. They're looking for government contracts that haven't been produced yet. But after reading this article and doing a little more research, I was really interested to find out these have already been produced by the Army. And here was showcased at the Defense Expo here. And so this is the XMAV, the Extreme Multi-Mission Autonomous Vehicle. And if you look at the difference between that and the Typhon system, this has the carrier built onto the back of the trailer, which is directly attached to the cab of the vehicle. So it's not a separate trailer on the back. So this would be a lot more agile and mobile in austere environments if they chose to produce these. As I read down through here, I was really interested to find out that this XMAV was produced directly because of talks directly between the U.S. and Kyiv, basically, or Ukraine. And so this was kind of produced as a way to strengthen Ukraine's long-range strike capability specifically. So that's made me a little more optimistic about this. And there's another side view of it. And I also thought this was pretty interesting too, because as you've seen, the disposition and the rhetoric coming out of the White House has significantly changed in support of Ukraine. A lot of people will argue that, yeah, it's just talk. But the fact that this vehicle was produced because of direct talks between the Pentagon and Kyiv tells me that rhetoric and disposition of the White House is behind supporting Ukraine. I also think this is pretty interesting here. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, commenting earlier this week, said Russia must wake up and accept reality, charging Moscow has absorbed heavy losses for minimal territorial gains. This was interesting. He also added that President Trump's position on the war underscores a growing urgency to contain the conflict while strengthening Ukraine's self-defense capabilities through advanced U.S. technology like the Tomahawk cruise missile and its new mobile launch architecture. I think that is an extremely powerful statement, showing that, as I said before, the disposition and the disposition of the White House seems to be backing Ukraine at this point. You have a lot of people will come on and try to talk down. And I want to transition into this next meeting. So a lot of people will try to downplay this and this new proposed summit between Putin and Trump. They will say it's just a repeat. It's just Putin stalling for time. I think Putin's stalling for time also. However, I think Putin is scared to death of these Tomahawk missiles. It's very interesting, and you should take note that it was Russia that requested the phone call between Putin and Trump after all this rhetoric of the Tomahawk missiles started. And he knew that Putin knew Zelensky was coming to D.C. to try to secure these Tomahawks. So he jumped in there to try to, cut it off. But the fact that he requested this phone call, which lasted for 2.5 hours, tells me not only is he scared, but it also tells me, and this is why I'm a little more optimistic about this second summit. It tells me that he must have said something to Trump or possibly offered Trump something in order to get this second meeting in the first place. And so the one thing that I would like everybody to understand about the difference between the Alaska summit and this summit is high level members, teams from each country are going to meet prior to. So Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, is going to meet with, and his respective team is going to meet with Marco Rubio and his respective team in Turkey or somewhere else prior to this meeting. So I will be first to tell you that I understand the Trump administration is very non-traditional and unconventional. So the reason I still try to remain optimistic is when I see this play out in a traditional and conventional administration, this is how it would go down. Putin calls the president, says something to him to make him think that he's going to make a concession or something. So they said, okay, we want to have a meeting based on what we've come to an agreement. We're going to have our two teams come together, which Lavrov and Rubio are doing. They're going to ink out whatever deal or lay a framework of whatever. And then the two world leaders are going to come together to possibly make an announcement. I'm hoping ceasefire maybe, or some type of concession or something. I don't think Putin would have been able to secure this meeting without offering something, and I don't think President Trump will walk away from this meeting without Putin having offered something else. He won't take another basically snub like he did in Alaska. I think if Putin tries that and walks away without giving anything, I think sanctions will immediately be in place, and secondary sanctions on China, more on India, and possibly even Turkey. And then I think the possible deployment of Tomahawks to Ukraine will be a serious reality at that point. So I like to take that optimism of how it would go down under a more traditional and conventional administration and still apply that to this administration. A lot of people online are screaming and just badgering Trump. As I go back to the Tomahawk, just send Tomahawks now, send Tomahawks now. Folks, if these things are sent, it's still going to take people a while to train them, to use them, maintain them. So you're still talking about probably months down the road before they are actually operational on the battlefield. I personally don't necessarily think that Trump intended to send these in the first place. I think he wanted to put this out in the IO, the information operation area, put it out in the PR space basically, to try to use this as a type of Tomahawk diplomacy, to try to scare Putin, to force him back to the negotiation table. And when I look at it from that angle, it has worked so far. Putin is coming back to the negotiation table after things really didn't go anywhere post the summit in Alaska. So I'm a little optimistic about that. I hope things are going to happen. The fact that I said teams from the two leaders' countries are meeting prior to really gives me hope for optimism, because that's more traditionally along the lines of how these diplomatic efforts would go in sequence. A lot of people don't realize also, these type of negotiations to end these conflicts like this usually take months or years. So, I understand a lot of people think, hey, this is just a phone call between two people and the war will stop. Like that's how it should work. That's not how it works. People are screaming, send the Tomahawk missiles. Well, yeah, trust me, I'd like them to send the Tomahawk missiles too, but that still does not stop Ukrainians from dying. It doesn't stop Russia from firing weapons at Ukraine. So I think we need to approach this diplomatically. As I said previously in my other videos, I think our best bet to defeat Russia, when I say our, I'm sitting in Ukraine, so I think the collective West best bet in order to stop or deter Russia at this point from any further aggression is to target it economically. Economically combined with militarily and politically, I think that's the best bet. But just trying to flood Ukraine with all the weapons you think it needs is not a solution. So, as I said previously in one of my other videos, if the Russian economy collapses, Putin is out. They can't pay their troops anymore. Their troops will go back home, and then Ukraine will be able to reclaim all of its land without firing anymore, and without having to fight back for it. And as I'd also said in some other previous videos, if Russia collapses like that, Lukashenko's out. So that would kind of help liberate the people of Belarus, who were on a NATO and EU trajectory prior to Lukashenko taking power. And this would also probably oust Kadyrov as well in Chechnya, and that would help liberate the Chechen people who, as I have also said before, true Chechens do not like Russians. So the implication of this outcome of this war still has, huge geopolitical ramifications in that area of the country, and we still could see that big change coming before long. So I will continue to remain optimistic. Okay, that's it. I said in one of my last videos, I got a big change coming up in my life. Yes, I still do, but I'm kind of on hold with the government shutdown. So as that moves forward, I will update you on that as well. That's about it. Everybody keep your fingers crossed. Let's hope something comes to fruition from this summit, something positive. And that's it. I'll be talking to you guys soon. As always, thanks for watching.